The Special Fathers Network is thrilled to be sponsored by Rubin Law, a multi-generational law firm dedicated exclusively to serving families raising children with special needs. It's not one thing they do, it's the only thing they do. To find out more, go to rubinlaw.com, RUBIN law.com, or call 847-279-7999 and mention the Special Fathers Network for a free consultation.
Look at your child. Look at your child. And your child hasn't changed. The diagnosis that your child has just been given doesn't change them. It helps to explain them. It helps you to understand them better. But it doesn't change the wonderful gift, the wonderful child of God that they are.
That's Mark Arnold, David Hirsch's guest on this Special Fathers Network Dad to Dad podcast. Mark is the father of 2 children, including James, who is autistic, has epilepsy, and is mostly nonverbal. And in this Dad to Dad podcast, we'll hear Mark tell his story. Here's our host, David Hirsch.
Hi, and thanks for listening to the Dad to Dad podcast, Fathers Mentoring Fathers of Children with Special Needs, presented by the Special Fathers Network.
The Special Fathers Network is a dad-to-dad mentoring program for fathers raising children with special needs. Through our personalized matching process, new fathers with special needs children connect with mentor fathers in a similar situation. It's a great way for dads to support dads. To find out more, go to 21stcenturydads.org.
And if you're a dad looking for help or would like to offer help, we'd be honored to have you join our closed Facebook group. Please go to facebook.com/groups and search Dad to Dad.
And now, let's listen to this discussion between Special Father Mark Arnold and David Hirsch.
I'm thrilled to be talking today with Mark Arnold of Bournemouth, South England, who's the father of 2, a director of Urban Saints Additional Needs Ministry, and started an advocacy group called the Dad's Fire Circle. Mark, thank you for taking the time to do a Special Fathers Network podcast interview.
David, it's great to be here with you. Thanks for inviting me on.
You and your wife, Claire, have been married for 33 years and the proud parents of 2, Phoebe, 20, and James, 18, who has autism, intellectual delays, epilepsy, anxiety disorder, and mostly nonverbal. Let's start with some background. Tell me something about your family. Where did you grow up?
So you introduced me as being in Bournemouth, which is on the south coast of England, and I'm a Bournemouth boy. That's where I was born and raised, and generations of Arnolds before me have been born in this area too. So in the next street to where I live is where my parents live, and 2 streets away from there is where my dad's parents lived. So we're work's taken me all over the world, but home has always been in Bournemouth.
Well, there's a phrase that we use here in the States that the apple hasn't fallen very far from the tree. And in your case, that would be very apropos.
That would be very, very apropos indeed, yeah.
So out of curiosity, what did your dad do for a living?
So Dad really had 3 parts to his working life. So he grew up at a time when national service into the armed forces was still a thing. So for several years, he was a soldier over in Malaya. Then when he came back from that, he was a television engineer. So if your TV set needed installing or broke and needed fixing, or you needed an antenna put up or something, that was Dad. He took early retirement from that and was going to sort of settle down to retired life, but after about 6 months realized he missed work. So he got a part-time job doing postal delivery and loved it, and did that for about another 6 years before he finally handed in his post bag and retired.
Okay, well, thanks for the brief career flyby. I'm sort of curious to know, how would you describe your relationship with your dad?
Oh, I've got a great relationship with Dad. Dad has, he's always been there, always there when I was growing up, always been there. He lives in the next street, so it's not far to go to contact him. And when we were first married and knew nothing about how to fix a house up and all those kinds of things, Dad was there. He's a really practical guy. So he was round helping us to do stuff. The house we're in now, me and Dad put the kitchen in, we put the bathroom in, we, did loads of work on the place. And yeah, Dad's always been there. We've got a great relationship. I mean, he's in his early 80s now. So, he's not as able to get around as much as he used to. And, bit by bit, the dad I knew is slowly slipping away a little bit, which is hard. But he's still there, and I still love him.
Yeah, well, you didn't use the word present, but it's very clear to me that he's been present in your life, from a young age and even into your adulthood now. So if there was one or two takeaways, lessons that you learned from your dad, something that you're trying to incorporate into your own fathering, what would they be?
I think, again, that sense of just being there, being around, being present, the word you used, being available is so important. And just, being able to pass on that experience and wisdom that he's gained, not in an arrogant kind of way, but just in a, hey, have you thought of this? Have you tried that? And in a gentle way, just coaching and encouraging.
Excellent. So from what I remember, you went to Bournemouth University, you got a degree in finance and business, and you found yourself in the world of IT, then in telecom, before you started your work with Urban Saints. And from what I remember, you've been there for just over a dozen years. I'm sort of curious to know more about Urban Saints, which I understand was founded in 1900, literally 120 years ago. And I understand it to be a Christian discipleship ministry. So what is it that you do there?
You're absolutely right. The organization's been going 120 years. And it started off from a guy called Albert Kestin walking through a park on a Sunday afternoon and seeing some kids that were out playing and wondering why they weren't in church, why they weren't in Sunday school. And he asked them and they said, well, it's boring. We don't like it. So he started a Bible class for them and invited them to be a part of it. And that's where it began. And, all these years later, we're still going. I joined 14 years ago. Initially, I joined to head up our volunteers program. We are a volunteer organization. We've got thousands of volunteers across the United Kingdom. And my role was to help with the recruitment and retention of volunteers, training, all that kind of thing. And I did that for a few years. And then I became chief operating officer there. Did that for about another 6 or 7 years. And it was during that time that we introduced a program at Urban Saints, which allowed team members to use 10% of their time on a project that had to be related to the stuff we did, children's and youth work and church-based work. But if it was something that was a passion and people, wanted to invest some time in that, and we weren't doing it already, there was an opportunity to do that. And I was really feeling more and more called to additional needs, special needs ministry. And so started to explore that, and opportunities started to open up, and it grew and it grew and it grew. And so 3 years ago, I was doing 2 full-time jobs. I was chief operating officer and I was additional needs ministry director, and both of them needed full-time focus. There's only one of me. So I really was faced with a choice. I don't know why, but God seems to turn up and have something to say in the middle of the night. So I'm convinced he's working on Israel time. Yeah, in the middle of the night, I was woken up and I just felt this presence of God. And one of the pictures that I saw was, more clearly than anything else, a road with a fork in it. And I was stood in this picture looking at this fork in the road. And I thought, okay, yeah, I get what you're saying to me here, God. You're telling me that, I've got these 2 roles that I'm doing. I've got to pick one. And God absolutely clearly said to me, hey, Mark, this is where you were a while ago. And you've been trying to run on both roads. And actually, you really do need to pick one. And the one I want you to pick is the additional needs ministry. And so the next day, I was having a conversation with my wife, Clare. The day after that, I was having a conversation with my CEO at Urban Saints and our board of trustees, and saying, hey, you've got to find a new ops guy because I really feel called to do this. It'd be great if I could do that in Urban Saints. And thankfully, they agreed. And so for 3 years, I've been doing it full time and loving every minute of it. Every day is just a wonderful day.
Well, thanks for sharing. And the journey as well and how you got to where you are. It's very inspiring. There are people like myself that are straddling the for-profit world and the not-for-profit world, some days more successfully than others, but I do feel like I'm sort of running on parallel paths. to use your analogy, and it's challenging. It can be really challenging. So I'm just thrilled that there's a place there at Urban Saints that you can follow your heart, you can follow your passion, and make a difference in the lives of youth like you have been. So out of curiosity, how did you and Claire meet?
Okay, so the church that I grew up in, the church my parents were at and took me to, had a sister church, and the two churches, their youth groups camped every summer together. That particular summer, I was there with my church as a member of the team to look after some of the children and young people. Claire was there from her church doing the same thing. Our eyes met across the campfire and magic happened. And here we are, 35 years since then, 33 years married. And it's been a wonderful journey to have been on.
That's fabulous. Thanks for sharing. So I'd like to switch gears and talk about special needs, first on a personal basis and then beyond. So I'm sort of curious to know, before James's diagnosis, did you or Claire have any experience with the special needs community?
No, we had none. It was a whole new world to us. We, as you mentioned at the beginning, we already had our daughter Phoebe. So she's 2 years older than James, and she developed normally. And so by the time James arrived, she was 2. By the time we started to have some concerns about James's development, he was 2, so she was about 4. So yeah, it was a very new world to us. I think I had one friend who has a daughter with special needs, but I mean, he didn't talk much about their family situation. So it was a very new world for us.
So I'm sort of curious to know then, how did his diagnosis come about at age 2?
So we were gradually becoming a little bit more concerned about James's development. He was 2 and he wasn't speaking. He wasn't giving eye contact. He wasn't responding to his name. All kinds of things that really concerned us and concerned the health visitors that would come and visit us in home as well. And so we started down this path of trying to see if there was something that we needed to understand better. For example, one of the things that we explored was whether he had a hearing problem. So we went for a hearing test, which he failed spectacularly. We thought, that's what it is. He's got a hearing issue. And then what we found was that 24 hours after the hearing test, he clearly had an ear infection and was really struggling with okay. So he already had that infection when he did the test. That's why he failed it. So they redid the test. He passed it. And that was fine. And so we were on to the next stage. And so James was 2.5 when he was diagnosed as autistic and with learning disability. And our world changed in lots of ways. Some not so good, some very positive.
Well, thanks for sharing. Everybody's journey is a little bit different. And I'm wondering if you can put yourself back at that point in time when he was 2.5 and they said, this is the diagnosis. What was the immediate reaction? Was there a lot of fear or concern or anxiety or not?
Yeah, I mean, we didn't know what that meant. We didn't understand what that really meant for James, what that meant for us, what that meant from the point of view of what James could develop and grow into. We just didn't know. Sometimes when I'm talking about this to groups of people, if I'm doing training and so on, I share with them how it was just staring into this void that we just didn't understand at all. And you know how you have dreams for your kids, don't you? And often those dreams are completely unrealistic. And I remember when James was born and looking at him as a newborn baby boy and dreaming of the day, because I love cricket. And I know you guys in the States don't play cricket, but you've hopefully heard of cricket.
Cricket, baseball, it's like the country's, main sport. I understand.
Yeah, it's a big thing here. And the biggest cricket game is when England play Australia. That's the big rivalry, the Ashes. And I was there looking at this baby boy and dreaming of the day when he'd go out to open bat for England and win the Ashes, and all those kinds of completely unrealistic dreams that we have for our kids. And at that moment, when somebody said to us, James is autistic and he has a learning disability. At that instant, all those dreams just seemed to disappear. And yeah, we entered into that cycle of grief, because we didn't know what the future looked like anymore. It certainly didn't look like any of those dreams that we had. And we really were struggling to process that. Was there any meaningful advice that you got on that helped you navigate that slippery slope at the beginning? Well, James was diagnosed at a place called the Child Development Centre, which is in just local to us, and they offered sessions for us and for James over several weeks and months following his diagnosis, and that really helped. It helped us to understand James better. It helped us to understand what we could do to help him and to support him, what services might now be available to be able to help James make the most of who he is. But it also helped us to come to terms a lot more with the news that we've been given. I recall a time, it was only a few months after James's diagnosis, and we were at the Child Development Centre. They had a playroom where all the children would be worked with by the staff there. And then there was a two-way mirror and then a parents' room where we could watch what was happening. And we saw a mum and her boy arrive, and the boy gets handed over to one of the team, and mum is heading away with another of the team. And we saw this boy, and he starts to run around the periphery of the room, and he's flapping. And he's not giving any eye contact to anybody, and he's not speaking at all. And a few months in, we're diagnosing him through the window and pretty much knowing what's happening there. About 30 minutes later, mum is brought into the parents' room where we are, and she's in tears, and she's obviously been given that news that a few weeks earlier we'd been given. And what we found was that even just a few weeks into our journey, we were able to chat with her. We were able to share a little bit of our very, very new journey with her, and to actually help her to realize that pain that she was feeling right there and then, it was right to feel it. We understood that, but it wouldn't last forever. And that there, would be a way forward for her and her boy, and that was great, and that helped us as well as helping her, and got us thinking about, well, maybe there's something more that we can do to help others in a similar situation to our own. Yeah, well, thank you for sharing. I think that one of the thoughts that comes to mind is that if you can witness what's going on with somebody else, you realize that you're not on this journey by yourself, right? That there's others that have been there, done that, and not to say that it's easy or that you're asking for the challenges, but it somehow, I think, helps you alter your perspective, maybe shift what your understanding of something is. Yeah. And I'm sort of curious to know, without trying to focus on the negative, but just to be authentic, what have been some of the biggest challenges that you and Clara faced with James's situation? Well, they've come at different stages during his development. So James is still mostly nonverbal. He's got a small number of words that he can use. He communicates in lots of different ways. So understanding his communication and being able to enter his world through that was an early challenge for us and an area for us to learn and grow through. But, there have been different challenges along the way. When puberty arrived, that changed things a lot as James was, his body was developing and changing. And then when he was 15, we'd got him up, got him downstairs. I'd gone to get his breakfast from the kitchen. He was in his den, just relaxing and watching something on the TV. And suddenly I could hear this crazy noise. Oh, what is going on? And I ran into his den, and James is having a seizure. Oh my God. It's the first time anything like that had happened. So thankfully I just switched into dad protective mode, made him safe, made him okay, called the emergency services, and an ambulance was there real quick and all this. And welcome to epilepsy. That entered our world, and it entered James's world to such an extent that he was having seizures then on and off, maybe weekly. So, I know a lot of kids have them much more than that, but for James, that just absolutely took all his confidence away, to the point where for over a year, for about 14 months, James was unable to leave the house. So that meant he wasn't at school, he wasn't going to any of his favourite places, he wasn't going to get the respite support, he wasn't going to church, he wasn't doing anything, he was just at home. And that was hard. That was hard for us as a family. We had to change our working patterns quite a bit to be able to be there for him, 24/7. But also it was hard because once again we were dealing with something we had no knowledge of, and trying to understand that again, and trying to understand actually, hey, is James ever going to be able to go back out into the world again? Is this now the new normal for James? Well, 14 months later, he began slowly to be able to head back out into the world again, and typically for James in a surprising way. But he is now able to head out more, and that's great. But we've had a whole bunch of challenges along the way. Just when you think you've got it all sorted out in your head and you know where you're going with it all, suddenly something new comes along, and it all gets thrown up in the air again. But hey, that's learning. That's the journey that we're all on together.
Yeah, well, thanks for sharing. It's just it's like a breathtaking experience to have you recount, starting at age 15, that you had some respectable challenges that you were sort of getting on top of, and then epilepsy sort of gets thrown into the mix. And in baseball terms, I know it's not cricket terms, but in baseball terms, that would be like learning to hit curveballs.
Yeah, absolutely.
And all of a sudden, you're like, oh, hey, I was okay with fastballs and changeups, but I'm not so good at hitting curveballs. So it took a while.
It did, yeah.
You sound like you're in a better place today.
Well, yeah, we are. Yeah, it's a better place, but you're always looking out for the next thing that could come along. The next variation of a pitch.
Exactly. So I'm sort of curious to know what impact has James's situation had on Phoebe, your marriage, or the rest of your family, your extended family, for that matter?
No, that's a good question. I think possibly it's had a bigger impact on Phoebe than we really understand and realize, in negative and positive ways. There are have been lots of times when we've been hoping to do something, hoping to go somewhere, even family holidays that have had to change or be cancelled, or something's been different because James has just not been able to be able to cope with that. And so Phoebe's missed out on things through her life. She's had to deal with stuff, but she's been there and supporting during those times. But she's also an amazing, caring, loving, wonderful advocate for disabled children and young people and young adults. She stuck up for kids that were being bullied at her school because they were disabled. She has been a real advocate for disabled students at her university. And so she has got a personality that has been refined in the fire of our family situation. Yeah, she's come out to be a really wonderful woman as a result of that. I think, for the rest of us, my wife Claire, similar to me, we've continued to be on a lifelong learning journey. Claire, as a career, is an educator. She works in primary education, and she has developed to be spending a lot of her time working one-to-one with other children with additional needs and disabilities as well, which would be something that she maybe wouldn't have considered or felt qualified to do if we'd not had our journey with James. But because of that experience, that lived experience, that's helped her to be able to go down that particular route. So that's been great too. The wider family, they're supportive. They don't always understand. They don't always get it when there's a big family occasion, and sometimes we have to phone up at the last minute and say, hey, we can't come, or not all of us can come, or we're there and we have to say, yeah, I'm really sorry, we're going to have to head back home now because James is really struggling. They can struggle with that, but generally they've been really supportive and caring and loving, which is great and has helped us hugely over the years.
Well, thanks for being authentic. It's not all good and it's not all bad, but it's real, right? This has been your experience. And I think that's just important to, put in perspective, because sometimes the perception is you've got it all together. And I think if we're honest with one another, the fact is we don't have it all together.
No.
We have to be comfortable, showing our vulnerability, right? And that's just being real about things.
I think that's absolutely right. None of us have got this all sorted out, and if we say we have, then we're just setting ourselves up for a fall, and we can't help anybody else if that's what we believe. If we think we've got all the answers and that we've got nothing left to learn, I'll talk to other parents, to other dads who are broken, who are struggling, and to just sit with a dad and say, hey, I know what that's like, and it's a shared common journey that we're on. None of us have got this together, and actually for somebody to hear that and think, okay, yeah, it's not just me that feels like this. Actually, it's okay to feel like this.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing. Thanks for sharing. So more recently, you've come up with this concept of Dad's Fire Circle. You did an event in July, and you have plans for doing more of these. What is your vision for the Dad's Fire Circle, and how has it evolved so far?
So the Dad's Fire Circle is a really new thing. It's really only been around for not much more than a month. It's pretty new, but it's had its DNA in place maybe for a while longer than that. So over here in the UK, there's a TV presenter called Ben Fogle, and he does a bunch of TV shows that are around living the life in the wild, going and living in wild places. And it's usually about families, sometimes individuals, who have given up the 9-to-5 day job and have gone somewhere in the world into the wild places to live. So I was watching Ben Fogle's thing about this fire and these guys gathered around that. It reminded me of this stuff that we've done with Care for the Family. And I thought, there's a real need to do something like this. And so literally within 2 days, we had a website. We'd started to push messages out through the different channels that we've got available to us saying, hey, we're going to gather some dads together. Do you want to come along and be a part of it? And we had a great time. We shared, we just hung out together. We did it all on Zoom because, we can't meet in person. And anyway, they were all over the UK, so it would have been a really hard thing to do anyway. But it was great. And at the end of it, I said to them, so guys, do you want to do this again? Is this something that you'd like to do on a regular basis? And they all unanimously said, yeah, absolutely, we want to do this again. And we'd love to do this monthly. That would be terrific. And could we maybe do a Facebook group or something as well as the website so that we can chat in between time? And so we've got a Facebook group and the website, which is also a blog and which also has details of, when we're going to be meeting again. And we're going to be doing this again in a couple of weeks' time.
Well, thanks for sharing. I'm inspired by the concept of the Dad's Fire Circle. We'll have to do another interview or a follow-up a year or a couple years down the road since it is so new, and to see how that evolves and what impact that it has. I'd like to talk about supporting organizations. First, the organizations that were helpful on your journey, earlier journey, trying to figure out how to provide James with the best opportunities. And then separately, if you can separate them, the advocacy that you've been doing, right? The work that you've been doing. So what were the supporting organizations, the ones that were helpful to you and Claire on the earlier journey helping James?
So I think what we found in those early years for James were that most of the organizations, most of the connections we were making were in the secular world. So that was through places like the Child Development Centre that I mentioned. James was then able to join a preschool that was really supportive and helped him to develop. So a lot of those early interventions were from the medical and educational world. And our church was really, really supportive as well. It was a new journey for them, but they embraced us as a family, James as a member of that church, and looked to put things in place to help James to get the most out of his time at church and to be supported there. And so when a few years ago, I had that opportunity to take my 10% of my time and start to invest it into an area of ministry that at Urban Saints we weren't exploring at that time. One of the first things that happened was I was invited to go and talk to a bunch of youth workers to share with them a bit of our journey. I went along and there was a whole bunch of these youth workers. We had a great time sharing about this. And I came away afterwards thinking, well, there can't just be this bunch of youth workers that would find this helpful. There must be loads of people that this knowledge would be helpful for. So the first thing I started to do was to look around to see who was already doing that, because I just assumed that there must be people out there doing this. And what I found was that there were a handful of people that were doing bits and pieces, but there wasn't really much on a national scale. And so we started to push some doors and we started to pray into it, and we started to offer out what we were doing more widely, and it got picked up and it grew and it grew and it grew to where we're at now, which is, we're absolutely really busy with folk, even in this difficult time that we're in. A friend that I've journeyed with for most of this time, Kay Morgan Gurr, who has been a nurse and has been a special needs nurse. We found each other and we founded something called the Additional Needs Alliance, a collaborative group of children's workers, youth workers, church leaders, parents, practitioners, a whole bunch of folk who are really interested in this area of working with kids with additional needs. And we started it off after a conference session where we'd been speaking to a bunch of people who wanted to carry that journey on themselves. We explored ways to do that. We put a Facebook group together. We started to build a website. There were 35 of us that started that journey, and it's grown to 2,500 now.
So one of the organizations that you helped co-found is the Additional Needs Alliance. And I think that was the organization that you and Kay and some others helped get off the ground. And it seems to be growing and flourishing. Thank you for sharing. I remember you also talking about the Additional Needs Blogfather. And I'm wondering if you can share with our listeners what that's all about.
So the Additional Needs Blogfather is my blog. It came really, again, like a few of these things along the way, from somebody asking me to write something. And I'd not written much, other than work reports and things. I'd not written anything creatively, probably since uni. It had been a long time. But I wrote something and it seemed to resonate with people. So I thought, well, okay, maybe that's something that could be helpful as another way of reaching people with this message. So created this blog, the Additional Needs Blogfather, and that's been running. I think we're in the 4th year of that now. Yeah, again, it's been one of those things that it's just been wonderful to see the wind beneath its sails, and the growth of it. And it's a blog for parents. It's a blog for children's and youth and families workers. Can share some ideas and tips and things that just help folk to understand how to maybe work better with children and young people in their context, mainly in a church context, but not entirely. It's a blog that just is there to encourage and equip and enable people that are on this journey as well. And I'm so thankful that thousands of people engage with it and read it, and it's a joy to contribute towards that and to see how that's developed over time, and to relearn how to write creatively again.
So I'm thinking about advice now, and I'm wondering, in addition to what we've already discussed, Mark, if there's any advice that you would give, particularly a young dad, somebody who's closer to the beginning of his journey, about how to engage when they have a child with additional needs.
Yeah, I think the first thing that I would say, and isn't this tough for guys to talk? We find it hard to talk, we find it hard to share, but actually it's so worth it. If we can share with somebody, if we can find other dads who are on this journey and just share with them, it can give us answers to the million questions that we've got. It can give us community with other people that get it. It can start to heal us from the pain and the hurt that we're feeling as we start to see, actually, here's a bunch of dads that are doing okay. And yeah, they have their tough times too, but they're doing pretty well. And so, reaching out to other dads is so important. But also, look at your child. Look at your child, and your child hasn't changed. The diagnosis that your child has just been given doesn't change them. It helps to explain them. It helps you to understand them better. But it doesn't change the wonderful gift, the wonderful child of God that they are. Go on that amazing journey with them. And so reach out to other dads and find that community, but also, just embrace your child and love your child for who they are and for all the amazing adventures that you're going to have. Life will be different for you, but it doesn't mean it's going to be worse. It can be beautiful. It can be exciting. It can be thrilling. It can be, amazing. Embrace it and enjoy it.
Well, you're speaking to the choir, because oftentimes when I'm autographing a book of mine, the tagline that I'll put in there is, life is a journey, enjoy the ride.
Amen. Yeah.
So thank you again for sharing. So I'm sort of curious to know, why is it that you've agreed to be a mentor father as part of the Special Fathers Network?
Well, I think it's so important for us dads to be able to share with each other. We've got experience along the way. James is 18 now. He was diagnosed when he was 2. So we've got 16 years of journey that we've got in our tank. Now, we could either, just hold on to that and use that for our own benefit, or we could also get alongside dads who are a bit further down the path behind us and be able to offer that help. And for me, I think that one of the most joyous things that I do in the stuff that I do is just talking through with a dad who's maybe really struggling, who's got a million questions, who doesn't know what tomorrow is going to look like, let alone a year, 10 years time. And to be able to just talk and share and listen, most importantly, to listen. And for that dad to feel heard and feel cared for and feel valued, and to go away maybe with a couple of things to try, or maybe just feeling that they've been able to unburden themselves of something. And that can be really, really rewarding for both of us.
Yeah, well, thanks for sharing. We're thrilled to have you as part of the network. And I think of you as sort of a man in the middle, not at the beginning of the journey, not toward the end, but like you said, you have 16 years worth of parenting experience, specifically as it relates to additional needs. And, there's still a thing or two that you're learning. And I think that you'll get a lot out of it, but it's like a lot of other things in life. You get out of something what you put into it. So if you're giving like you have been, there's other rewards, right? Not monetary rewards, but other rewards to be received. So again, we're thrilled to have you as part of the network. I'm sort of curious to know, is there anything else you'd like to add before we wrap up?
First of all, again, just thank you so much for having me along. It's great to have connected with you and just to to learn from you guys and the stuff you've been doing over a number of years. The Dad's Fire Circle is less than 2 months old. We're new to Dad's work in this way, but there's much we can learn from you, which is great. But I guess, just to again, looking at it, I'm over here in the UK. If there are dads that are this side of the pond, particularly that I can help, then do get in touch. Do go and have a look at thedadsfirecircle.com and see what we're up to there, or get in touch with me. Email me, and it'd be great to chat. Great to reach out to any dads that are this side of the pond and see what we can do together. Because I'm all for teaming up with people, for encouraging others in the ministries they're doing, and signposting towards what people are doing as well. So whatever we can do to encourage that more, then that's great.
Well, thanks for sharing and being open. I'll be sure to include in the show notes information on Urban Saints, the Dad's Fire Circle, your blog, as well as your contact information.
Fantastic. Thanks, David.
Let's give a special shout out to our mutual friend, John Falligeller, Special Fathers Network, Dad to Dad podcast number 65, for helping connect us.
Fantastic that John has brought us together, and really grateful to him for just, that link, which who knows what God's going to do with that and where that might lead. But it was John that was the instigator of that relationship. And so thanks, John.
Mark, thank you for taking the time and many insights. As a reminder, Mark is just one of the dads who's part of the Special Fathers Network, a mentoring program for fathers raising a child with special needs. If you'd like to be a mentor father or are seeking advice from a mentor father with a similar situation to your own, please go to 21stCenturyDads.org. Thank you for listening to the latest episode of the Special Fathers Network Dad to Dad podcast. I hope you enjoyed the conversation as much as I did. As you probably know, the 21st Century Dads Foundation is a 501c3 not-for-profit organization, which means we need your help to keep our content free to all concerned. Would you please consider making a tax-deductible contribution? I would really appreciate your support. Mark, thanks again.
Thanks, David.
And thank you for listening to the Dad to Dad podcast, presented by the Special Fathers Network. The Special Fathers Network is a dad-to-dad mentoring program for fathers raising children with special needs. Through our personalized matching process, new fathers with special needs children connect with mentor fathers in a similar situation. It's a great way for fathers to support fathers. Go to 21stCenturyDads.org. That's 21stCenturyDads.org.
And if you're a dad looking for help or would like to offer help, we would be honored to have you join our closed Facebook group. Please go to facebook.com/groups and search Dad to Dad. Also, please be sure to register for the Special Fathers Network bi-weekly Zoom calls held on the first and third Tuesdays of every month. Lastly, we're always looking to share interesting stories. If you'd like to share your story or know of a compelling story, please send an email to david@21stCenturyDads.org.
If you enjoyed this podcast, please be sure to subscribe on iTunes or wherever you listen. The Dad to Dad podcast was produced by Couch Audio for the Special Fathers Network. Thanks again to Reuben Law for supporting the Dad to Dad podcast. Call Reuben Law at 847-279-7999 and mention the Special Fathers Network for a free consultation. 847-279-7999.